Bill Cosby's camp reeling after yet another round of sex abuse allegations lodged at America's Dad, Bill Cosby. Straight out to Candace Trunzo, senior news editor, mailonline.com. Candace, how many women will it take until someone attempts a criminal prosecution?
Well, you know, Nancy, there are 17 women who have come forward so far. And the issue that we see is we've gone through all of the statute of limitations laws for each state in which these women claim they were raped. And unfortunately, there are at this moment that we know of no women who have come forward who can actually pursue the rape allegations in court.
Unleash a Lawyer is joining me, Jeff Gold, defense attorney out of Atlanta, with Parag Shah, defense attorney and author of The Code. First of all, to you, Parag Shah, I'm sure that both of you, veteran defense attorneys, are familiar with tolling a statute of limitations. A statute of limitations is this. Say, for instance, you've got an armed robbery. You have, say, 5 to 7 to 10 years to report the armed robbery. If you don't do it within that period of time, the statute has passed, the statute of limitations, and you can no longer bring your case. That's what we're talking about. However, there are exceptions. You can toll the statute or extend the statute of limitations. Now, Parag Shah, one of the ways to toll a statute is, for instance, repressed memory. That you didn't have a way to remember it, i.e. you were drugged, and then a period of time later, and it can be years, you recall what happens at that time, you can then report the rape. Isn't that true?
There is a discovery rule where at the time you discover that a criminal act has occurred and you've been violated, at that time the statute of limitations can begin to run. And so the real question would be, in these women's cases, did the statute in fact toll, and at what point did they actually know? Exactly.
What about it, Gold?
Well, in Nevada, for example, where Lake Tahoe, half of it is, you have to report it to the police. That's what their legislature said. If you report it, we don't care if we find the guy or not, it could be forever, but within 4 years you have to report it. This wasn't reported. It doesn't have the indicia of reliability that society wants.
Put him up. I don't know what you're talking about, society, because what I want is the truth. And I don't know if your hearing device was hooked up, but if you heard Barbara Bowman just then describing what, you know what, let's go back to Barbara Bowman, who says America's Dad, Bill Cosby, sexually assaulted her. Miss Bowman, when I first started hearing the stories recently claiming that Bill Cosby had attacked them, I was skeptical. I took it with a box of salt because I thought, why is this lady coming forward now? Why didn't she report it to police? In fact, I was agitated because I had two choices. One, what she was saying was true and a rapist would walk free because she didn't go to police, and somebody else would get raped, or bit two, that it was a lie and it was all just a money grab. So many women have come forward and personally told me their stories, Barbara. There's no way to escape the reality that at least some of these stories are true, and this is not a money grab. I've spoken to a victim, an alleged victim, who was approached by a tabloid years ago, offered her thousands of dollars. She said no, she didn't want her story told like that. She has just come forward. Please explain, if you can, to the defense attorneys why you did not go forward at the time and call police.
Well, first of all, I did tell my agent right away, and she did nothing about it. That led me to believe that the two trusted individuals that I had been placed in their hands, I couldn't certainly trust them. Who else was going to believe me? He was Dr. Huxtable, after all, the most influential man in the country. Eventually, I had a friend who did talk me into going to an attorney. I felt safe enough to do that, and that attorney laughed me out of his office, literally laughed at me and told me that my claim was preposterous. So after all of that, being that broken down and that scared and that feeling so full of shame and fear, I just said, I'm going to get on with my life. No one's going to believe this after this. I've given it my best shot. No one's believing me. I have to shelve this and get on with my life. In 2005, 4, 5, and 6, when Andrea Constand's case came up, she filed a lawsuit, and the 13 of us were supposed to testify on her behalf, and she ended up settling with Bill Cosby. So none of us had a chance to tell our story. At that time is when I decided I was not going to be a Jane Doe. I said I had been living in silence and fear and shame for 17 years as it was. I'm going to speak out because I'm going to support this woman. No one else believes her,
So
as
that
no one
is why
believed
you
me.
finally came
That's
forward.
right.
Everybody, Barbara
That's where
Bowman
these women
is
came
with us.
from. I did this for them, really. I said, if I can sit and do this and not be afraid anymore, maybe I can help others to have courage to come forward and tell their story, because they were too scared. And I said, if I can pioneer this and help some of them, that's what I'm going to do.
Take a listen to Janice Dickinson.
I remember the memory. I remember the loss of and being robbed of my innocence. And I believe the women that I haven't been in contact with, but I believe their story because it was exactly the same thing that happened to me. But I can't speak for them as a whole. I can only speak for myself as an individual. And as an individual woman, I am Janice Dickinson, and I am the world's first supermodel. And this took place in 1982, and it took place in a hotel room in Lake Tahoe. And that Cosby was wearing a bathrobe with patchwork, velour and a velvet hat, and he was wearing a gold watch. And I remember the pajamas, and I remember the semen. There was a lot of pain, a lot of semen. I didn't do the right thing. I didn't report it. I didn't go to rape counseling. And you know what? I was afraid, but I'm not afraid anymore. So I now am strong, and I have support, and I will go on with my story till my last breath.